Compliance is where PAM proves its business value. In this section, we'll connect privileged access controls to frameworks like ISO, NIST, SOX, HIPAA, and PCI, and show how strong governance turns security activity into audit-ready evidence. So far, we've covered IAM fundamentals, privileged risk, and core access principles. We then built the PAM control layer with vaulting, rotation, monitoring, hardened workstations, keys, and secrets. Now we shift from implementation to governance, proving controls work, enforcing policy, preparing for audits, and setting up Microsoft Entra PIM. Privileged access sits at the intersection of security, risk, and audit accountability. Because these accounts can bypass normal controls, governance cannot be informal. A strong PAM program defines who can request, approve, use, monitor, and review privileged access. It also produces evidence that controls exist, operate effectively, and are reviewed over time. That is what compliance teams expect, and it is what the business needs. Good governance turns PAM from a technical tool into a risk management system, enforcing least privilege, traceability, accountability, and transparency across critical environments. Compliance frameworks may use different terminology, but they point to the same PAM expectations. ISO 27001 emphasizes governance, access control, monitoring, and continual improvement. NIST guidance translates those ideas into practical control families for identity, access, audit, and credential protection. PCI-DSS is more specific to cardholder data environments, requiring strong access controls, multi-factor authentication, logging, and secure credential handling. The common audit question is straightforward. Can you prove privileged access is limited to the right people, approved for the right reasons, monitored and reviewed regularly? ISO 27001 treats information security as a managed risk cycle, not a one-time checklist. PAM fits that cycle naturally. During planning, you define privileged roles, approval paths, and acceptable use. During execution, you enforce least privilege, session controls, and access based on business need. During checking, PAM provides logs, reviews, and audit evidence. During improvement, findings drive remediation, policy updates, and tighter controls. The takeaway is stronger governance. Privileged access becomes visible, justified, monitored, and continuously improved within the organization's ISOs. ISO 27001 does not require a specific PAM product, but it does expect disciplined control over privileged access. PAM gives you a practical way to prove that discipline. Admin rights are limited to approved users and roles. Privileged sessions require stronger authentication, such as MFA and controlled credential checkout. Activity is logged, monitored, and flagged when behavior looks unusual. Access is also reviewed periodically, so old or unnecessary privileges can be removed. The compliance value is the evidence: who had access, how they authenticated, what they did, and whether that access was still justified. NIST is useful because it moves the conversation from tools to controls. Instead of asking only, do we have a vault? NIST pushes us to ask whether identities are governed, access is strongly authenticated, privileges are limited, and activity is accountable. PAM maps directly to those control families. Role-based access and just-in-time elevation support least privilege. Approval workflows reinforce separation of duties. Session recording, log retention, and event correlation support audit requirements. Password rotation, MFA, and secrets protection strengthen credential controls. Together, these practices make the PAM program measurable, defensible, and aligned to recognized guidance. In practice, NIST alignment means each privileged action leaves evidence across the access lifecycle. A user requests access with a business reason. An approver validates the need, scope, and duration. The user authenticates and receives only the permissions required for the task. During use, the PAM platform records session details: who connected, to what system, when, why, and what they did. Reviews then compare activity against policy and remove access that is expired, excessive, or no longer justified. Those findings feed back into better rules, alerts, and approval criteria. PCI-DSS treats privileged access to the cardholder data environment as a high-risk control area. If an administrator can reach systems that store, process, or transmit card data, that access must be tightly justified, uniquely attributable, and strongly authenticated. PAM helps enforce that discipline. It limits access to business need, requires individual accounts and MFA, stores and rotates privileged credentials, and reduces reliance on shared unmanaged passwords. Just as important, it records administrator sessions and events, so teams can investigate issues and prove compliance during assessments. For PCI-DSS, the focus is not just whether controls exist. It is whether they operated around cardholder data systems. Auditors will look for a clear chain from expectation, to control, to evidence, to owner. Policies define who may use admin, service, and emergency access. MFA records prove privileged entry is strongly authenticated. Logs and session records show what administrators actually did. Access reviews prove privileges are revalidated and removed when no longer needed. The key mental model is traceability. Every privileged access risk should map to a control, an artifact, and an accountable team. Think of PAM governance as the operating system for privileged access. It starts with clear policies: what is allowed, who approves it, how credentials are handled, and when exceptions are acceptable. It then assigns ownership so IAM, security operations, system owners, compliance, and auditors know their part. From there, it standardizes the lifecycle: onboarding, requesting access, rotating credentials, monitoring sessions, reviewing access, and removing it quickly. Metrics create accountability by showing whether controls work, where risk exceptions exist, and how fast remediation happens. Governance turns PAM from a tool into a repeatable management discipline. Auditors are not looking for promises that privileged access is controlled. They are looking for evidence. For PAM, that usually means 4 artifact families: access review records, approval workflows, password rotation logs, and privileged session activity. Good evidence answers who had access, who approved it, when it changed, why it was needed, and what happened during use. It should also be accurate, complete, time-bound, and traceable back to policy or a specific control requirement. The best audit posture is built before the audit starts. Collect these artifacts continuously, keep them organized, and document exceptions clearly. Privileged access evidence should read like a connected story, not a pile of logs. It starts with the request: who needed access, to what, and why. Approval adds the business justification and authorizer. Authentication proves the approved person actually signed in, ideally with MFA. Session activity shows what happened on the asset. Credential handling proves checkout, activation, and rotation were controlled. Review confirms the activity was examined after the fact. Every artifact needs timestamps, identities, systems, actions, and approval context. If something deviates, document the risk acceptance, compensating control, and expiration date. PAM governance should run as a continuous control loop. Start by measuring whether privileged access is actually under control. How many privileged accounts exist, which are stale, where rotations fail, and whether reviews finish on time. Then detect exceptions like unmanaged credentials, shared accounts, break glass use, or overdue remediation. Those findings must be resolved, not just reported. Dashboards give leadership, risk teams, and auditors a shared view of control health. Most importantly, trends should drive improvement through policy updates, automation, cleanup projects, and tighter ownership. To close, PAM becomes truly effective when technical controls are governed, measured, and evidenced. Least privilege, MFA, credential protection, monitoring, and reviews all map to major frameworks, but audits depend on proof: approvals, logs, recordings, policies, and documented exceptions. Next, you will apply these ideas in Microsoft Entra PIM through eligible roles, activations, approvals, and access reviews.